It looks like it's working. Uh, Okay. I Whenever I start these live streams, I'm always skeptical because my internet connection can be a little sketchy. It looks like it's working. I can hear myself in the monitor, so that's good. So happy Saturday. I'm gonna start off a little bit different. I always like to try different things. So today I am going to share a couple of my videos that I made this week, and we're gonna go. So this was from yesterday.
Today I'm looking for one sign these onions are ready. Yep, one beautiful onion. I hear variety is the spice of life.
So this
Now
is the
where am
first
I gonna
year I
hear all these
grew
onions? The kids weren't
onions
using the table
in
anyway.
the
Lay out the
large grow
onions,
bags. They're
clip the
50,
roots.
I think they're
Now the
55
hard
gallon
part,
grow
hurry up and
bags.
wait.
And those those grow bags have been sitting around for a couple of years. It's That was an accident from COVID. So I started MEG Edible Landscapes in 2020, uh, selling potted plants at farmers markets, local farmers markets. And the first company that I ever ordered grow bags from accidentally sent me a 55 gallon, I think it's 55 gallon bags that you saw in that video. So they've been sitting around since 2020, and at the beginning of this year, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to utilize these. I have plenty of potting soil from the prior years. So how this works for my little business is I'll send potted plants out to my customers at the end of the season or at the end of the month, depending on what type of customer they have. They'll, hey, good morning, Michael. Uh, I'll bring the pot back, and then I'll dump the potting soil out, and then it composts, and then I can reuse that. So certain plants I use brand new or virgin potting soil, which isn't really soil. It's a blend of peat moss, compost, sometimes pine bark fines, and some other amendments, and then fertilizer and some other um, proprietary information or ingredients. But uh, anyway, when those come back, they go into a big pile. They compost, so any like roots or any type of vegetative material, they'll break down, and then I reuse the potting soil uh, for the next year. So some plants that I use new every year are the sensitive plants that tend to be prone to diseases. So like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, uh, plants like that. Stuff that's pretty hardy that I reuse old potting soil are root plants, so like carrots, radishes, uh, tur turnips. I don't do turnips. Beets. That's the other one I was looking for. So those ones I do uh, absolutely. Wow, the whole gang's showing up. Hello, uh, Jay Bot's here. That's okay. You're right on time, Jay. Uh, Shawnee Groves is listening from the garden. Nice to have you, and nice to join you in the garden today too, by voice. And Dave's here too. Fantastic. The whole gang's here. So since the whole gang's here, I'm gonna replay that video that I just played because I think you guys missed it and I want you to see it. Okay, so this is the video that I played right at the top of the live stream. This is one of the videos I did yesterday. Uh, and I'll just kind of rehash what I just said so you guys don't miss it. But in 2020, when I started the company, I ordered a bunch of grow bags from a couple different vendors. One vendor, I ordered 5 gallon grow bags, and they sent me like a 55-gallon grow bag, which is completely impractical for what I do because uh, part of my business is I sell and I transport container plants. So that 55-gallon bag is sit in my shop since 2020. And at the beginning of this year, when I was planning for seeds and what I was going to be doing, I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to try those 55-gallon bags this year because I had plenty of old potting soil and there were some other plants that I don't typically do, like bulb onions. So this year I grew three different types of onions and I used those 55-gallon grow bags, and they worked great. I was very happy with them. In that video, you also see some other plants I have. I do beans. I have some dill in there. I think you'll see that in the video. And then I also have five different types of corn varieties. Three of those are popcorn. Yeah, three are popcorn, and then two are dent corn. Two different types of dent corn that I'm experimenting with. But the 55-gallon grow bags are large enough to where there's enough soil for all those plants to do their thing and be really happy. Yeah, Dave says 5 gallon, 55 gallon, that's almost the same. Yeah, not really. In fact, I reached out to that company and I said, hey, 55-gallon bag's not going to work for me. And they said, just keep it. It's not even worth the postage to like send it back to us. So they allowed me to keep it and then they sent me some 5 gallon bags. Uh, but the funny part about this is not that they sent me the 55-gallon grow bags by accident. The funny part was I ordered from that company because I was just starting to get big into grow bags or using those as containers for the business, and I think I ordered 5 or 10 of each size, so like 3 gallon, 5, 7, and then 10 was the highest except for the 55s they sent me. But so I used those. I want to get my hands on them. I wanted to see how durable they were. They performed well. So I called back to that company to order like I think I was gonna order 750 or 1,000, and they said we're back ordered. So this was in like the middle of 2020. So I don't know. But anyway, that 55-gallon bags have been sitting around forever. Until this year, I used them. So here's that video again, so you guys don't miss it. And I'll commentate on the end. I'm curious to know what you think. But here we go.
Today I'm looking for one sign these onions are ready. Yep, one beautiful onion. I hear variety is the spice of life. Now, where am I going to cure all these onions? The kids weren't using the table anyway. Lay out the onions, clip the roots. Now the hard part, hurry up and wait.
Okay. So I see JBot had written a pro tip. When you have spare time, the insanely big grow bags can be cut up and sewn into smaller, useful sizes of wall-grown pockets or grow bags. That's a great idea. Uh, I I when I was selling at farmers markets in our local communities, I used to that was on my top five question, most asked question was, do you sew all these bags? And I said, no, I don't have that time. I don't have that time. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you guys, but when I order grow bags, I usually order boxes. So I get a discount because I get them from a wholesaler. And of course, with any type of wholesale, the larger the quantity you buy, the lower the cost per unit or bag in my situation. And so it varies on the size of the bag on how much they can give the box. But let's just say 7 gallon grow bags, I usually get boxes of 120. I think that's the number on those, 120 at a time. Um, so when I order grow bags, I'll order like 500 to 1,000 at a time. And at this point, I have thousands of bags that I just rotate through. And then I have bags I've been using since 2020. So if you've ever thought about using grow bags and wondered about the longevity and if they last more than one season, they do. And that's one of my favorite parts of that is that they're relatively inexpensive. I mean, we're talking for me since I'm paying wholesale rates, I'm paying like $1 a bag. I think I've seen on like Amazon or some of the big retailers, you could probably pay a couple, $3 per bag, but still that's relatively cheap when you consider the alternative of doing terracotta or clay pots that can be $50, $100, depends on how fancy you want to get. And then with the bag, you get the utility of how lightweight they are and they're easy to transport. And then you get the longevity too. So, yeah, some of these are going 6, 7 years now. And I only I only replace them when they fall apart, and that's usually because mice somehow got into them when they're at a customer location. And that happens. I'll pick up the bag and I'll see there's a hole this big at the bottom where a mouse was trying to chew through. But honestly, I don't even really have that problem with a lot of my gardens because they're raised to keep the critters off them. So last year I did have a mouse get into a customer garden, and that's because a lesson learned for me is one of my vining plants that was it grew out of the bed and kind of hung over the side of the raised bed, and then the mouse was able to use that as an escalator to get up to the plants. So that was a lesson learned last year. But yeah, I don't have time to sew the bags, so I buy them from the wholesaler. Let's see. Dave mentioned the trays that go under the washing machines. Great tr drip trays for 4 or 5, 10-gallon. I haven't used those yet. I Yeah, I'm not sure. That is a great idea. I appreciate that. See, okay, there's a side conversation on covers I see. Yeah. Mouse, thanks for the staircase to the snacks. Yeah, it happens. The funny part for me is mice in particular, or any other creature that we consider a pest. The reality is they have all day to get to what they need to survive, and we might be in the garden or around the plants for maybe an hour a day, maybe. I mean, I have a small commercial plant nursery, but I'm not babysitting the plants all day, every day. The reality is, I'm out there in the morning when I'm scouting for problems, whether that be pests or diseases, and that's maybe an hour and a half tops. It might be longer if I'm working out there. I'll get close up to the plants, but really, when I'm walking through the gardens in the morning, I'm only out there about an hour and a half or so just to say hi, drink some coffee. The cucumber plants like coffee too, so anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Uh, but the pests and other critters out there, they have all day to try to access the plants if they can. So if they can get into what they want, they're gonna attempt to. Um, I had, I don't want to get too far off the subject, but I had a few years ago, I had problems with chipmunks. Out of all the animals that I've never had a problem with before, I had problems with chipmunks. And they figured out how to get into the hoop house, and they're not like mice, so they're not going to chew holes through the grow bags. But I was trying to figure out why my cherry tomatoes, the skins were laying on the tables. So I'd come in to do scouting in the morning, and I'd have like maybe 3 or 4 tomato skins just lying around the tables, and I couldn't figure it out. One morning I walked in and I saw a chipmunk because the tables are high enough so where the mice can't access the plants. I use cinder blocks and then tables on top of the cinder blocks, so mice can't jump that high, but chipmunks can. So I saw a chipmunk jump up onto the table, crawl up underneath the canopy of the cherry tomato, and then I'm like, okay, so I figured that out. And then I put the live traps out to get them. But that was only one year I had problems with chipmunks. That's kind of funny side story. Oh, this is interesting. So Hash says indoors I use 4x8 sheet of plywood with 1x4 sides like a table, lined with 6 mil plastic. Easy to change out without having to clean it. I love that idea. Yeah, I use plywood for my tables out in the hoop house where the container plants sit on. and I wrap them in plastic, 6 mil plastic also. That's so the plywood doesn't rot. And I've been using the same plywood for since 2020. I haven't had any problems with them. I have to replace the plastic every few years. I try to get the 6 mil plastic that has the UV stability, whatever in it. I'm not a plastics engineer, but I just know some UV or some plastic sheeting is UV resistance. That's the stuff I look at or look for. That's the same stuff the hoop house is made out of. So if you ever want to do a hoop house, look for the and if I would say if you live in the Midwest, especially where we get high windstorms, and not all the time, but it gets quite windy out here. We've had 80-mile-an-hour straight line wind gusts before, and it destroyed my first hoop house. But anyway, having said that, if you're going to do a hoop house at some point in time, find the strongest plastic you can find. So I got 10 mil scrim, and then it's UV resistant, so the sunlight, the UV and the sunlight won't break down the plastic. It lasts for 4 years. That's the lifespan I get out of my hoop house plastic, and that's that's as good as I can ask for because they get beat up sometimes during the windstorms. Let's see. JBot Sage about to do fall seeding starts for the first time ever. Cool. I'm curious what type of plants are you planning on for this fall? So I'm also in transition this week. So harvested those onions that you saw in the video, and I did 3 different varieties. But this week is my sort of pseudo transition. So all the summer plants, they're all fruiting. So all the cucumbers, the I even have pumpkins that are fruiting, or they got little fruits developing. Squash, I got squash. I'll show you those here in a little bit when we get to the plant show. Um, so all the summer stuff's in full bloom or actively growing. Uh, Cherry tomatoes, I'm harvesting those too. So it's just a very fun part of the year. In fact, from now until the end of September is my favorite part of the growing season because this is like when all your hard work from February, even on some of these plants, you're now able to enjoy the harvest. So, and then this week too, I just started my plants for fall. So that's something it took me a few years to kind of figure it out, and this is something I want to talk about today. Is let me switch that. Um, it took me quite a few years to figure this out in the past, and once I figured it out, I know how to move forward. But growing a garden or growing in a plant nursery setting or the commercial, it doesn't matter if you're growing plants. The calendar can be your friend and the calendar can be your enemy. So we always have the climate or what's going on with the weather patterns. We can't really control that. We can control when we start plants. So I think I've mentioned this in the past, but I'll just reiterate it again because it's one of my core principles on how I operate. Um, I try to give myself and my plants the maximum opportunity to be successful in their growing. So what does that mean? That means certain plants, it's a one shot, one kill for the year. So those are the plants like that have a long season, but at a certain point they're just not gonna be able to do anything more because they can't take a frost. So in my region, September, if I have any warm season plants, that's not a good time for them to just start flowering and fruiting because they're never going to make it to completion for the end of the year. So how I get around that is like peppers, tomatoes. When I start those, because I start those in March, I do a lot of them. Not all of them are going to make it into the pots, but I had mentioned this I think a couple weeks ago. I always have backups, and then I have backups to backups. So that's how I operate. I don't want, and if you've grown in for a while, you know this that you're always going to have uh, problems, and it's just the nature of growing. You're going to have losses. So that could be transplant loss, and there's different techniques and things you can do to prevent plants from dying when you transplant them from like a seedling tray out to their final home. Uh, that was a learning curve for me when I was growing in grow bags because my potting soil was way too dry when I first started, and I couldn't figure out why I was losing so many seedlings. And I realized that I needed to get a lot more water in the grow bag potting soil before I transplanted the seedlings in, so they would have a better transition to their final home. So that was a learning curve for me. But loss from transplants, loss from weather. So I have a hoop house. It's super strong. It'll most of the hailstorms that we have, and that's why I have is to get jump start on the season, then protect the plants from hail or damaging winds. Um, so those plants are usually protected, but if I have plants that are outside that are just under like row covers, if we have a hailstorm like my rhubarb this year, my rhubarb got banged up pretty good, but it didn't kill the plants because rhubarb is tough. That's what I appreciate about rhubarb. So, but that's another way we could lose plants. We can also lose plants through any type of disease, early spring disease, or you know, maybe maybe deer show up, the row cover blows off the plants, and the deer decides they want to have a snack. Um, but anyway, so for those types of plants, peppers and tomatoes, I plant a lot of them. And what does that mean a lot for me? So I usually have like 10 to 12 trays of peppers and tomatoes, and then I might transplant a few hundred, but that's with the ones that are going into the bags that are going out to customers. I have the rest of them are like standby, so I use seedling bags, but I only use that for the early ones, and I've talked about that in the past. What I usually do is I use air prune trays or those wind strip trays, and those are nice because I can extend the season on those seedlings for up to a month, usually about a month. And then after a month, once I either delivered the peppers or tomatoes to the customers, or I don't need the backups anymore, then the backups go in the compost pile. And do I always have to use the backups? No, I don't. But when I do, I'm very thankful that I did plan ahead. Because it avoids a lot of headaches, it avoids a crisis. I have living plant that I can now transplant, and it's not a total loss. So that's how I deal with those types of plants um, that have a short window to succeed in their growing season. So meaning from frost to frost, I have a lot of those plants standing by, ready to deploy if I need them. Other types of plants like cool season plants, I'll and it depends on the type of plant, but I'll do succession. So a lot of you I know do succession planting. So and there's different ways you could do succession planting. So mine's going to look a little different than if you're in like a raised bed or in the ground because I'm containers. So succession planting for me basically means uh, let's say for sugar snap peas and beans because I do the same thing for both of those. I'll start a certain number of sugar snap peas, different varieties at a certain point time, and I don't know. Let's just pick March for a start time on that. So I'll do maybe a couple hundred. This is not what I actually do. It's just for example. I'll do a couple hundred sugar snap peas. I'll start the seeds, and then a week later I'll start another couple hundred, and then the next week after that I'll start a couple of hundred. So I have this rolling inventory of sugar snap peas going. And I have to stop them at some point because this time of the year in mid July, sugar snap peas are done. So all my peas came out a few weeks ago, and then those got switched with beans. So I have three different types of beans running right now, different colors because what I do with programming and therapeutic gardens, colors are a huge part of that. So, but the same thing with the beans is I'd start beans, the next week I'd start more, next week I'd start more, and then that has final time for that too because unlike the peas that could take frost, the beans don't. So right now this week I actually just started the next round of peas and then not just like sugar snap peas, but I also did shelling peas for the fall. So rolling this back to the calendar, um, if you grow for a certain amount of time, you'll kind of learn your own techniques and when you want to start stuff. and it's always comical to me when I see on like Facebook or it's mostly on Facebook when and I've done this in the past too of getting spring fever and you just start a whole ton of stuff with the earliest convenience or earliest time you can, but then you end up paying for it later because it becomes overwhelming. So um, that's my only word of advice is if if you if you are newer to growing, start documenting when you start things, and then every season you can tweak either earlier or later when you want to start growing. So for those tomatoes and peppers that I told you about, I used to start those the first week of March. I don't start those until mid-March now. That gives me a break in the nursery, so I don't have as many seedlings run at the same time. But also, I don't need them to start earlier because what I found out is by the time Minnesota allows me to transplant those seedlings outside, which won't be until May, that those seedlings are getting to the point where they're getting a little bit too big. So um, from what I found for me and what I do, mid-March is when I start my peppers and tomatoes now, and it's worked out fantastic. I just do a lot of them, so I have backups to backups. So we got a lot of we got a lot of chat over here. I got to get caught up with this. I like this. Hash says, ecology. Do you live near Santa Claus? That, that's a good question. Uh, Yeah, JBot says, pro tip, pre-water seedling mix well before planting. Yes, that's a fantastic one, and I learned through pain and repetition, so I wish I had talked to you before I started that journey in 2020, but it's okay. I figured it out. It actually wasn't hard to figure it out because after I started losing plants, I'd actually pull up the seedling out of the bag and then realize that the potting material was bone dry. So even though I poured water in it, um, I found out too, if you haven't worked with a lot of peat moss, it takes a while for peat moss to become hydrated. And then once it is hydrated, fantastic. You just got to keep it hydrated because if it dries out, then it changes again the dynamics of how that works. But I have heard before people saying that like dried up peat moss, you can't hydrate it again. That's not true because, like I said, I compost my old potting soil and it'll get dried out, not completely bone dry, um, but I'll rehydrate that in the spring and then add any amendments to it and then use that for um, like I mentioned earlier, like root crops or stuff that's not fussy. Well, I do have one question for Dave. Is how's your turmeric and ginger doing? So my ginger and turmeric, I had mentioned earlier, this is the first year I've tried tropical plants in Minnesota. Right now they're doing fantastic. They're in the hoop house with the summer plants. They had a pretty rough start. I think I should have kept them inside the house a little bit longer. Um, but they're doing fine. They got new shoots coming up, new leaves. They look happy. But when I moved them out there originally, we had overnight lows around, I think low 60s, maybe high 50s. And I won't do that again in the future because that was a little bit too cool for the ginger and turmeric. So some of the leaves, um, the plant was telling me it was not happy. Is basically what was going on. So some of the leaves got a little stressed out, but they look fine right now. So that's been pretty cool seeing the turmeric and ginger take off. You're you're trying your hardest to sidetrack me. Yeah, I do sense that. Dave says turmeric's a rock star. I have it between a foot and 3 feet tall. Ginger not far. So the plants overall are 3 feet tall, between a foot and 3 feet tall. I don't know if mine are gonna grow that tall. I think yours are probably older plants than mine. So mine are a foot tall right now. The ginger and then the turmeric's probably a little bit taller than that right now. But yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, ginger and turmeric. So they're doing well. Uh, for other plants for fall, I was listening to the Shawnee Grows. I don't know if Shawnee is still on this live stream, but live stream from Thursday, we're talking about watermelon radishes, and I'm actually starting watermelon radishes. So if you've never grown watermelon radish, I highly recommend it. It's another magical experience. Radishes are fun to grow anyway, in my experience, just because they grow so fast. So it's like one of those you can scratch your itch and get your instant satisfaction or gratification from a plant growing like very quickly. But watermelon radishes take it to a couple levels higher. They take longer, so 50 to 60 days for them to swell up and be ready to harvest. But once you've tasted one and once you've like sliced a watermelon radish in, it's a magical experience. The first year I grew them, this was a couple years ago, um, I didn't really know what I was. I had no baseline reference, so I didn't know what it was going to be like. But when I cut into it and saw the inside of that watermelon radish, it was a magical experience. Oh, there's more information here. So Dave says planted in March, April, it will get 7 to 8 feet tall. Wow, that's that's impressive. I guess I didn't read the notes. I don't know if mine's gonna get that tall. I'll probably have to cut it back because later this year I'm gonna have to bring the ginger and turmeric in. But 7 to 8 feet tall. That's impressive. But watermelon radishes. I'm curious. Have any of you grown watermelon radishes? But those are. I'm getting those started here pretty soon. Those are going out to my the therapeutic gardens, and then also I'll be bringing those into my programming later this fall with the senior living communities. Um, but for this upcoming week, besides all the peas and I actually um, I did start some those watermelon radishes. Not much else is going. It's just kind of a holding pattern. I'm gonna be transplanted a lot of the late stuff the rest of the summer. I have a bunch of basil running right now, like different varieties of basil. So all the trays of basil that I had, they're all in their little quarter-gallon containers, and they're happy with life because we have the heat to go with it. So they're doing their thing. I'm gonna show you in the plant show too here coming up that uh, I I always love propagating things or expanding my knowledge base on how to propagate. And this is something I'm curious to know if you've had experience. Any of you, drop in the comments. Have you propagated your own plants? So one I'm going to show you is my mint plant. So I have a bunch of different varieties of mint plants. I have chocolate mint, peppermint, spearmint. There's some other mints I want to get to. Oh, mojito mint. You can't forget mojito mint. Um, but I want to add a couple more like apple mint and then orange mint later this year. But anyway, those mints that I just rattled off, I took cuttings from those a month ago, and so I just used one of my regular Winstrip trays, the 128 cell, and then I just snipped. I mean, these mint plants, they have plenty of foliage on them. I'll just snip and then stick in the Winstrip trays, and then I was curious to know how long it would take from the root because I've rooted mint in like a little cup of water in the windowsill before, but this is the first time I've used the Winstrip trays, and they did great. I think it took 2.5, 3 weeks from the point where I cut them, stuck them in the trays, to the point where they were growing roots. The nice thing with the Winstrip trays is I have the bottom watering trays go with them too, so it's easy to just lift up the tray and see when the roots start coming out. But all those plants are in seedling bags now. and then I'm gonna transplant them into quarter-gallon grow bags here very shortly. I'll probably start doing the chocolate mint this week. But yeah, so mint plants is what I learned to propagate this year, or uh, with the wind strip trays. Uh, J-Bot says I've not grown watermelon radishes, but I'm curious. When we get to the point where I start harvesting, I'll definitely bring them in and cut them open. I'll show them to everybody because they're very cool. Don't cut back turmeric. They make a great upright large leaf plant. Okay, that's good to know. I appreciate that. Maybe that's gonna be in the living room plant. Oh, this is interesting. Has anyone grafted watermelon to pumpkin? Never tried this. And Jay says yes to casual plant propagation and seed saving. Yeah, definitely seed saving. Seed saving is fun. And uh, certain plants are easier to save seeds from than others. I think the first plant that I ever saved seeds from were radishes, and I don't know, just watching a radish plant like a little breakfast radish go to seed is kind of a cool experience too, because it put up a main stem, and then you'll see, I don't know, like 4 or 5 dozen pods. So they'll be little seed pods, and then you can bust the seed pods in like a plastic bag or a little glass container, and then you can store them that way. But that was one of the first seeds I saved, and I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again because it warrants repeating. But had I not saved seeds years ago when I was starting this little plant nursery, I would not have been in business in 2020 because there was a run on vegetable seeds. And not only vegetable seeds, there was a run on perennial fruit. So we had moved to our current acreage right before COVID, so 2019. And I was looking to get some like raspberries and I think fruit trees, maybe apples or something like that. Yeah, no such luck. 2020 was a horrible year to buy something like that because everybody else had the same idea. So, um, but yeah. Anyway, oh, thank you, Jaybot. Turmeric rarely flowers indoors. This sounds like a challenge, and I'll accept this challenge. The plant needs intense heat, high humidity, and up to 10 months of frost-free tropical weather to bloom. Yeah. Yeah, this sounds like a good challenge. Hmm. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so to finish up for what's coming up this week, this is a prepare for fall growing, and then like I always do, I'm sure you do this with your gardens or however you're growing is just monitoring the plant status, looking for potential pests and diseases before they become out of control nightmares. But I'm gonna switch over to this one because I have a couple more videos to show you. These are videos that I did this last week. So this is how I rig up a cucumber plant.
Today I'm gonna hand pollinate my cucumbers in a high tunnel. Tickle tickle.
Oh, this is my
Pickle
bad.
pickle.
I grabbed the wrong video. That's my pickling cucumber plant. So that's the hand pollinating. This is one that I want to show you too is the pepper pollination. There we go.
Today I'm gonna
Yeah.
squirrel 2 ways I hand pollinate pepper plants.
And you get a
With a
sneak peek in
Q-tip. Or, come
the
on, you know
grow
what to
house
do.
too.
Then you get this.
But so all my pepper plants are in that hoop house, basically to protect them from grasshoppers. So my biggest problem with the pepper plants is if I have them outside, all the army of grasshoppers is probably gonna chow down on the leaves. But inside the hoop house, what's very cool with the pepper plants is that I got two ways of doing it. Really, there's only one. I did the second with the Q-tips just to show other YouTube video viewers how to uh, pollinate a pepper plant with a Q-tip. And then I also do Q-tip pollination with my senior living communities. So it's just an alternative to pollination. But how I typically pollinate tomatoes and peppers is I'll just shake the plant. And I don't know if you look at that video very closely, you'll actually see pollen from the flowers kind of like falling when I was touching with the Q-tip. So if you shake the plants and talk to it nicely, it'll self-pollinate. That works well if you have very calm days, but here in Minnesota, we typically have a lot of wind, so most of my plants like that, the tomatoes, peppers, I don't really have to shake them unless we have calm days. And with the last couple of weeks, we haven't had a ton of wind. It's been hot and humid, and so that's what I've been doing in the morning is after I water them, I'll just shake the plants. Sometimes just watering will disturb or shake the plant enough to where the pollen's getting loosened up enough. But yeah, well, J-Bot's got the joke of the day. The turmeric, don't get carried away. That's pretty good. I like that. All right, here's the plant show. So let me move this. I'll move this over here so I can comment on these and you don't lose my face. All right, so this is in the hoop house also. This year I'm experimenting. Like I said, my pepper plants, I have problems with the grasshoppers just annihilating the leaves. Um, I mean, I could put a row cover of them outside, but why? I mean, they do perfectly fine in the hoop house. But this plant right here is it's one of my squash plants, winter squash. It's I have two different varieties. I have baby butternuts, and then I have climbing honey nut. Both of those I get from Renee's Seeds out of California, and this one is the climbing honey nut. I could tell by the pattern on the squash too. Um, but this is in the hoop house. I hand pollinated this, and I actually split up my squash this year. So I have squash outside. I'm experimenting to see if the leaves get destroyed by grasshoppers. I don't, so far they haven't. And I've had them uncovered for about a week. And this is what I do too with those. So I need them to be pollinated. I have them all rigged up on bamboo, and in this picture you can see that I have bamboo stakes kind of on the left side of the picture. So I make a tripod of 4 foot bamboo stakes, and then I use garden twine, and then I wrap garden twine in a couple rows around, basically the same thing you'd get with a galvanized steel cage. I do the same thing with bamboo. In my opinion, it looks prettier. So I I kind of think about aesthetics too. I'm doing some of this stuff. And but that's what the squash is climbing on right now. And I'm doing a side by side A/B comparison because I want to see one if the squash outside do well as far as not getting beat up by any pests, and then I'm letting the bumblebees pollinate them. So it's very exciting. This morning when I was watering, I had I think 3 bumblebees that were pollinating the squash plants outside that are on the bamboo trellises. And then what I do for all those plants that I mentioned that are outside is I leave them uncovered during the day so that bees can access them. And then at night, I'll throw the row covers over them, basically to keep the moths and the other insects that like to come out at night and lay eggs and then chew up the plants. So I do that same thing for all my perennial plants. They get covered up at night, and I've noticed a huge um, difference between years past and this year with not as much damage to the plants. Mostly because they're covered up at night. So the flying or the insects that come out at night, they can't see them. So that was some knowledge that I wanted to share with you too. If you have any type of plants that need to be pollinated and you got row covers, you can simply uncover them during the day and then cover them up at night. So that's squash. There's English cucumber. I'm doing 4 different types of cucumbers this year. This is one of them. It's a hybrid. I get it from High Mowing Seeds. That's one of the seed companies I get seeds from. But English cucumber, and I could put my hand in this picture so you can see the size comparison. So, and that cucumber right there is not done growing yet. They do really well. I grow them in 7-gallon grow bags, and then I also use those 4-foot bamboo uh, posts or poles to make the tripods with those too. Michael's asking about the berry crop advice be shared in this chat. Um, or were you talking to somebody else, Michael? You must be talking to. Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. You guys talk. So, English cucumber again. And then here's the chocolate mint. So in the background is chocolate mint, and then in the foreground that's lemon balm. So I didn't just try to um, root the mint. I also did the a couple of different plants. So lemon balm was one, and then I also had some lavender that I wanted to propagate, and a couple other herbs that I had laying around that I needed to reproduce and keep on expanding the fleet of plants. Some of these plants for next month, I have a couple of senior living communities that asked me to do like a summer refresh. So that's gonna be exciting because we haven't really touched their grow bed since May. And when I say grow beds, I mean like the elevated plants or boxes. So that was one reason why I wanted to propagate my mint and my lemon balm is because those are some of the plants that we're going to put into their raised planter beds here next month. And then what's cool is that with that time of the year, August, we have summer plants that we can do. So I'm gonna get some basil in there also, but then we can start the fall plants. So I'm planning on bringing the sugar snap peas and some other fall variety plants. And then there's a close up of the seedling bags I use for the mint plants. And then these are nasturtiums. I do nasturtiums every year. It's one of the I guess I could say the crowd favorite edible flower. Uh, what I love about nasturtiums, well, there's a couple things. They, if you've never tried to taste them, they are edible. Uh, I, I I equate them to a radish, so they have like a radishy, peppery flavor. But then, like this one right here has those orangish red flowers. Those are also edible. They also have the same type of flavor. It's not as strong as the leaf. So a nasturtium leaf is going to have the biggest punch for the wow effect, I guess. But then the flower itself has a milder pepper, radishy flavor. But nasturtiums, they do well all summer long as long as the flowers are harvested. If they're allowed to go to seeds, just like any other flower, the plant's going to slow down because it finished its biological cycle. So, nasturtium is one of my staple edible flowers I do every year. And then I have a few different colors. But this one right here is one I sold a lot of at the farmers markets. If you ever want to sell plants at the farmers markets, I highly recommend doing red. Doing red, do red flowers. Those were one of my biggest sellers were the red flowers plants. And then this is one of my pepper plants. So the video earlier saw me shaking the pepper plants to pollinate them. And then this one right here is a red picnic pepper that I get from High Mowing Seeds again. I think this is their, if I'm remembering correctly, it's High Mowing's variety that they developed. It's a red picnic pepper. So you can see the peppers on them already. They're still growing. It probably 2 to 3 weeks they're going to start to change to red. And that's one of my favorite parts of peppers is, and tomatoes too, is when they start to blush or change the color. That color breaks. That's one of my favorite times for that plant. It's just the colors that you start to see. It's kind of like a rainbow coming out, and then it finishes with its final color. But that's red picnic pepper. I've done the other picnic peppers from High Mowing in the past. They also do yellow and orange, but I typically do the red every year, regardless of if I do the orange or yellows. And then this one right here is Pixie. I showed this plant earlier this season. I talked about it quite a bit, but this is one of the cabbage plants I grow. And I took this photo right before the live stream today, this morning when I was watering plants. This plant is at the end of its life, so I'm gonna be harvesting this weekend. I have a bunch of these, but I wanted you to see what the Pixie um, baby cabbage looks like. And I grow them in 3 gallon grow bags, so it's a perfect size plant for the 3 gallon grow bags. They're easy to move, and they do really well. I've been growing those for quite a few years now. I grow one other cabbage variety. It's Purple Express. That's the name of it. And I get the Purple Express and I get the Pixie from Renee's seeds out of California. I do the Purple Express. It's a Napa cabbage. So unlike the Pixie that you see here, that's that compact head, the Purple Express is more upright, and I grow that exclusively for the color. It's a beautiful plant. When I'm doing my sessions at the senior living communities, I always talk about edible plants, but more importantly, the the ornamental value or the ornamental edibles. So I usually refer to them as the ornamental edibles. They're not only edible, but they're just beautiful plants. And on that Purple Express plant, which I don't have a picture to show you right here, but um, I always flip the plant over so people can see the back of that leaf. So like on this cabbage plant, it's green. If I flipped over the leaf, you'd see like, oh, it's green. But on the Purple Express and a lot of leafy green plants, if you flip the leaf over, so now you're looking at the bottom of it, um, it's got this beautiful like purple and green ribbing on that bottom of that leaf. So just a very pretty plant. But anyway, Pixie cabbage, it's a great little performing plant in small containers. So if you have small containers and you're wondering what you can grow in them, Pixie cabbage. And I don't get paid to endorse this. It's just a great performing plant as far as cabbage go. And then I'm gonna be doing some videos on the harvesting on the Pixie cabbage because um, I don't make sauerkraut. I'm not gonna make sauerkraut this year. What I've done in the years past is I've actually given that cabbage to friends of mine who then make sauerkraut, and then we do like a trade type of deal. But I'm actually going to experiment with freezing cabbage this year. I did some research. I'm curious to know if any of you have ever frozen cabbage before, 'cause that's what I'm going to experiment with. So I'm going to blanch it first, and then freeze it, and then chop it up, and then put it in um, airtight containers, and then leave it in the freezer. We'll see what happens. But that's what I'm planning to do for the cabbage this week. I also have garlic that's coming due. I checked it yesterday when I was harvesting the onions, and I also did the garlic in those large 55-gallon grow bags. I've gotten some requests at farmers markets in the past about growing garlic in grow bags. You can absolutely do it. Um, it's just a different experience. And I'll be honest, I haven't perfected growing garlic in grow bags yet. Um, so the big thing for that is timing. I usually plant it in mid-October, and I would encourage you if you're going to do garlic to order it right now. Because in years past, when I've waited too long, so let's say like late August, September, the larger garlic seed producers, they're already sold out, and a lot of the varieties that you probably want, or at least the ones I want. So this is typically the time where I'll order the seed garlic for this fall. Um, but the garlic that I did grow, uh, I was a little disappointed. I'm gonna change some stuff for this year, but I think I had some curious animals on those grow bags. So what I did last fall is I got all the 55-gallon grow bags set up, filled up with potting soil, got them hydrated. I planted all the garlic, so I had I think three or four 55-gallon grow bags full of garlic. Um, I'll just say like maybe 20 garlic plants or cloves per uh, grow bag. I think that's about right. And then I noticed every couple of days that one of the garlic cloves was sitting up on top. So I'm not sure what was getting in there. I suppose it could have been a mouse or maybe a squirrel, deer, something. I don't know. But something was throwing them out or pulling them up. And so I'd replant it, and then I put covers over the grow bags. But I lost a lot of garlic, and I think it was just curious creatures that didn't necessarily want to eat the garlic, but were just digging it to cause problems. I don't know. But this year I'm gonna try a different strategy on making sure the garlic stays in the the grow bag this year. But for the garlic that did successfully overwinter, they performed well this spring and summer. So they're at the end of their life. They're showing me signs that they're ready to harvest. So I'll do some videos on that too. Um, but like I said, I got questions every once in a while from people that were wondering if you can grow garlic in grow bags, and you can. So uh, for the past 7 years now, I've put a lot of different plants in grow bags, and a lot of them perform well. My only word of advice is make sure, and you probably hear this with other gardening channels, is like the plant has to fit the spot that it's going to. So, like that pixie cabbage, that's appropriate plant for a 3-gallon grow bag. Like those gigantic cabbage plants that you see people growing, I would not put that in a 3-gallon container. It just wouldn't make sense. I'd probably put one of those in like a 55-gallon grow bag. But honestly, I wouldn't do that because I can put a lot of smaller plants that would do just as well, wouldn't take as much space up in that the big grow bag. But something else I'm growing. This is the final thing I'll leave it with is those 55-gallon grow bags. I'm also growing sweet corn and dent corn in those, and they've tasseled. They got baby ears on them. Um, they've been performing well. I wasn't sure how they perform in those grow bags, but I think there's a large enough volume of soil to where all those corn plants are doing just fine. So I don't know. We'll see. But let me quick check the chat here, and then we're gonna say so long for this weekend. Hmm. Okay, here's an interesting one. J-Bot says, the other day in my garden, a passerby did not recognize red cabbage as they had never seen them growing. I thank you for sharing this because this is, I have like a top 5 favorite parts of what I do list, and that's one of them is the consumer edu should I use consumer? We'll just stick with consumer. Consumer education on where food comes from. That is my one of my top 5 absolute favorite things that I do is connecting humans with the food that they eat. So like even the popcorn plants that I've grown right now, the activities that I'm going to be doing in October with some of the communities I work with, the whole idea behind that is a lot of people, one, don't know that popcorn is actually from a maize plant, and then two, that it's actually a baby maize plant. So it's not like those gigantic, like 12-foot row corn that you see out in the cornfields that are right behind me here in Minnesota, but they're cute little plants with cute little popcorn ears. So connecting the dots or helping people connect to the food that they eat is one of my favorite things. So I'm not surprised at all when I get people telling me like, "Oh, I didn't realize like popcorn came from a corn plant." Of course it does. uh, And it's not a fault of these people, because when most of your life is consuming or purchasing uh, store-bought produce, or even worse, like frozen or like canned vegetables, like you have literally no idea where that food came from or what that plant looked like, when that part that you're eating, what it started, what was its life journey, is what I'm trying to say. And that's another reason why I do what I do with the gardens, um, is because I love the part of helping, again, connecting people with food. So some plants, like these ornamental edibles, they're just so beautiful. Like I want to share that experience with others, that yeah, for like a purple sugar snap pea or like a sugar snap pea, we eat the peas, but that is a beautiful plant when it's starting to flower, and then you see like the purple and white flowers on like a purple cayenne pepper plant, and then when you look at the actual plant itself, you can see purple in the leaves or in the stem. It's it's awesome. If you just bought the pepper or the fruit of that, you would never know like what that experience was like to see that from seed to seed on that pepper journey. So that is one of my favorite parts of that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Oh, we have there's a some conversations on fruit trees. Uh, JBot says that it's very common to get a strong year followed by a weak fruiting year, and I've seen this too in my own experience. At our last house, not so much here at this place. We have a couple of very, very old apple trees. One's a Granny Smith apple, and then I'm not sure what the other two varieties are. But when I say old, they're older than me. So they are, I think they're pushing 50 years old. They're very old. In fact, the Granny Smith, I had to do some severe pruning on that when we first moved there because it had been neglected. Well, it just kind of grew wild. So the main trunks on it had kind of done one of these, and it wasn't healthy. So it's been kind of fun to prune that back into existence. But as far as like heavy and light bearing years for fruit trees, that's absolutely true. I have definitely seen that in my own experience. Dave says not only does popcorn come from a corn plant, there are no GMO corns that can be popped. Um, that I was this days old when I learned that. I that's not something I've like really studied or looked into, but I appreciate you sharing that information. So yeah. All right. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for joining me today. It's been a great hour. Yeah, so from here till the end of the year, it's going to be harvest what we grew, and then set our gardens up, or set our containers up for the um, fall plants. So anyway, have a great weekend. I appreciate you spending the hour with me, and look forward to seeing you in the future.